Welcome back to our show, Hollywood Structured. As some of you already know, our program is designed to help the young people who wish to enter the entertainment field, may it be nightclub work, theater, film, or television. It is also designed to help the parents and the educators of those young people to help them understand their wants, their needs, and the traps or the pitfall they may fall into unless thoroughly acquainted with the inner workings of Hollywood. Today, as usual, we have a special guest. Someone I met a few days ago while I was working on the set of the movie Predator #2. A very charming gentleman. And I spoke to him about our program, and all I had to say was, it is designed to help the young people. And I asked him if he would be on it, and he said, absolutely. And even though this gentleman has been shooting all night until late this morning, slept a few hours, ran 4 miles on the beach to keep in shape, will be shooting again all night tonight, he is with us today. This man is considered now in the Hollywood community a star, a big movie star. It is a man, however, who is interested in theater, as you will probably see. He didn't start at all wanting to be an actor. It seemed to be a fluke, but it seemed to be a fluke, a sideways that I often say to you, you should take. He is very modest, therefore I will brag for him. You have seen him in Places of the Heart, Witness, Silverado, Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, Mandela, Lonesome Dove, Dead Man Out, and in a movie in which I absolutely hated you, Color Purple. However, since he did not start becoming a movie star overnight, he better than I can explain to you his long years of struggle before he found himself. Let's welcome to our show, Danny Glover. Hello, Dan.
Hello, thank you.
It's a great pleasure having you here.
Well, this, as I said, I'm quite honored to be here.
All right. Would you explain to the young people out there who are now in school and who are thinking either of quitting school or entering into the acting professions, some of the pitfall that you found? Because you didn't want to be an actor. You actually were an athlete. You did football, baseball, basketball.
Yeah, and even that, you know, as I said, and I'll always make this statement, I realized real early that I wasn't a good athlete. So that cut one profession out right away. Actually, I didn't know what I wanted to do at all, you know. I think even going to college was something that I felt that I wanted to do, needed to do. But that came not at 15 or 16 or 17 years old, but almost at the point that I was finished with school. I had no alternative at one point but to go to community college, you know. But I began this process of life, you know, and I think life and looking at life as an ongoing learning experience is the most important attribute you can have as a human being, that it doesn't stop with school, it continues on, and that there are experiences that you learn by. You grow, you learn, you dream, you know. So if there's certain things that I would certainly point out for young people is, one, to dream. That dreams open up a whole different world for you, to have passion for something. If you have something, if you're passionate about something, and passion makes the world go round, and dreams are what passion is, dreams are translated into passion, rather. If you have those two things, you'll go a long way in the world.
You are now in school, and you are having problems in school when you were young.
Absolutely. The problem I had with reading, whether I learned now and recently that it was dyslexia, and I had a problem with that. But I was also my self-esteem wasn't the best in the world, you know. So you put me in front of a class and asked me to read page 1 through 6 of Dick and Jane, you know. I'm a fumble and foam at the mouth and stumble over everything, you know. Luckily, you know, there were other things that were happening in my life at the time as a young kid, other things with school, which gave me some sort of reinforcement and esteem. And some say I loved math, you know. And even though on one occasion my counselor had the audacity to tell my parents that I was emotionally what's the word? I can't think of the word.
Retarded.
Retarded, excuse me. Retarded, that...
and nobody ever spotted the fact that you had this...
Nobody ever spotted the fact. I had problems with reading. And I was transposing words. I was, you know, focus, my concentration and focus were terrible, and no one knew this, you know.
Now, do you think that you compensated for not reading by being terrific in math?
Absolutely.
And other subjects? Absolutely.
Something about math, and I learned this in college, ironically, that whenever I did something that was quantitative, albeit working out economic theory or whatever, that I began to focus in a different way. And the discipline of math allowed me, when I picked up a book, to read something, to read pages in something in a book or some other subject, that it flowed quite easily and much better, you know. So it was very interesting. And I use that. I use that in school at times when I realized that, boy, this works in some sort of sense. And all you had to do, even if it didn't work, even if it didn't at all change the dynamics that were happening at that particular time, I believed it changed it. And once you believe it changed it, then something's bound to. Once you believe that it changes, that you believe it, then it's real. And that's the most important thing, that you believe it. And it's just like acting. If you believe that you are who you are, then you force everyone else to believe it. You make them believe it.
You mean as a character?
As a character.
As a character.
Yeah. It's the strongest thing. It's the thing. I think the most important thing about acting as well, you know. Okay,
now you finished college, and now you're looking for a profession. What do you do?
I'm walking around. I had pretty good. I've been very fortunate. When you use the word struggle, you know, I mean, there weren't a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or bread and butter sandwiches that I ate. I think that I had one other thing, that I had a capacity from the outset. I never mind working. I mean, if it was unloading bananas when I was 17, from banana boats as a longshoreman, washing dishes, doing custodial work, whatever, delivering papers, anything, I wouldn't mind doing it at all. So I had this great capacity to find something, because I always thought, in some sense, that jobs were relevant, you know, and somewhere it picked up in my mind. But I also had a little bit more control of my destiny when I was able to say, well, I'll do this, and I have my own money, I pay my own rent, and all those things, you know. So I had this going for me, and so when I finished school, I did an internship at the Berkeley City Planning Department for about 6 months. And I came over and worked for the city and county of San Francisco for 6 years. In the interim, so around 1974, I decided, well, I'm not cut out for this being a bureaucrat. And I began to, or not only that, I need some, not that I'm not cut out to be a bureaucrat, that I need some other stimuli in my life. And so the kind of stimulus I got was doing improvisation, theater.
Now, I'm privileged to the fact that you just told me a moment ago that while you were working for the city, or actually in school, you were interested also in politics, and that's the only time that you started to do not theater, but something similar to theater.
Well, political theater. I think that theater's first responsibility is to inform people. And not only entertain them, but to inform them. I've always thought that theater allows you to see yourself, as the audience to see themselves, to understand themselves. And I think that art in itself does that, whether I don't care whether it's realistic or surrealistic or whatever, it allows people in some way in its various forms to understand themselves.
So you were very involved at that time.
Yeah, I was very involved. I was involved as a student activist, involved in theater, involved in community politics, and since we as human beings, our whole socialization process comes from other human beings, and everything that I get, I'm only a manifestation of what I see and what I've learned and the people that I've been around, the struggles that I've been involved in, all that. I bring that to my work. So I had a whole arena of ideas, thoughts, feelings, and I think there's another thing someone once said about art. An artist is one who has empathy for humanity, and then I think you understand that in working with that. You live. What I'm saying in essence is that in learning and living, you grow and you make some sort of contribution, or you understand yourself. And I think that has happened with me as well.
All right. Now, when you were doing this, you had no idea you would ever be involved in the theater?
Absolutely not.
Or film?
I mean, I had never dreamed. I mean, it wasn't even part of my subconscious to think that I'd ever be this. I mean, I look at myself now and I laugh because it's just funny to me. There's no track record or reference for me doing theater. There's no track record or reference for anybody in my family doing what I do. You know, my grandparents began as sharecroppers and farmers, and my mother began as a farm girl who had ideas and who had a different sense of herself and wanted to move on and came to the city. I'm the first generation to be born in the city in my family.
Now, you're working for the city and you decide you're bored.
I'm bored.
You work several years there and you start doing improv.
Improvisation.
Now, what did your family say when you quit your job to do improvisation?
Well,
there was no money to it.
Well, there's no money. I mean, but I think there's always been a feeling with us as children that if you worked hard at what you do and you believed in what you were doing, I mean, there was no kind of idea of saying that there were going to be 5 doctors out of the family or 3 morticians or, out of the family or 4 teachers or whatever. I mean, my parents wanted me, both my mother, and they were supportive as long as I was happy. If I wanted to dig ditches and I was good at it and I worked at it and I took care of myself and was responsible for myself, the first thing, to be responsible for yourself. There's one thing that my parents taught me is to be responsible, take responsibility for your life, and that's all they wanted, whatever I did. So they were supportive of anything I do, and whatever has occurred or whatever I've accrued is in their way something, a blessing, but certainly the fact that I took responsibility for my life is the most important thing.
All right, so now you do improv. And you decide for yourself that you want to be in the Big Apple.
Yeah, I'm doing.
You want to go to New York.
I'm doing improv. I decided myself that I want to make a living in this business. I mean, when you start out in theater, the first thing you think about is saying there's nothing but theater. Everything else is subhuman. Television, movies, whatever, is proselytizing yourself in some way. Prostituting yourself in some way. So. What happens is that I began to want to go to New York, and that's in conflict with want to make a living sometimes as well. I began to do some, get a few episodic things down here, and it looks like things are moving. My agent said, boy, 1979, 1980 is going to be a nice year for you. I decide on a fluke that I want to go to New York to do this play off Broadway. I had never been to New York, and I wanted that experience as an actor, particularly as a stage actor, as a thespian, So what happened is that I went to New York against my agent's wishes and did a play. The play led to something else. The play really immediately led to nothing. I came back here broke. I remember getting a job, a friend of mine doing a documentary in 1980 about Oscar Micheaux, who was a black filmmaker in the 30s. And I said, when he called me up and says, Danny, you look kind of like Oscar Micheaux, and I want you to do this thing for $900, and I'll send you a round-trip ticket. I said, send me 2 one-way tickets. I'm getting out of here, you know. Because I was starving, broke. I couldn't buy an audition from New York. I couldn't even beg up on an audition, you know, in New York. So I came back here, did a few things, and
now, I understand, a little bird told me that your agent called you and they wanted you to come back to audition for a very particular series.
Not audition.
Which you, oh, no, that's right.
Not audition. The series was offered to me in 1980. It was offered, it was said, just bring us an offer. I mean, I'm sure we'd have got about $5,000 to $7,000 a week, which is a lot more than I ever had made in my life at that particular.
Tell please the people over there what you actually did. Well, the name of the series?
I turned down the series and stayed with a play called The Blood Knot, and the series I turned down at the time was a role in Hill Street Blues. But
which ran for about 9 years, I believe.
Yeah, but you think about it, and somebody always said that what's for you is for you, you know. Now, the guy who actually got the role was the third choice, and it was actually for him. If he's the third choice, and I'm the first choice, and he gets the role, that was actually for him, you know, and that's fine, you know. The things that happened to me since then, there's no way. I mean, my life has completely turned around. I might have gotten caught in the series. I may have left the play, been disturbed about it myself, did the pilot, found out that the chemistry didn't work between the three of us. So there's a number of dynamics that could have occurred, a number of alternatives that could have occurred. So we don't know. We know that what is that I did stay with the play, and things went on in a different way.
And you met through the play a writer who recommended you for another play, which opened doors for you here.
He met through the play, the writer of the play, who was going to do another play later on, and the writer, in my sense, was, if there was, I think each actor at some point in time in his life says, not each, but most of us say that this writer writes for me. This writer has my voice, and that writer for me, at least through about 5 of his plays, has been Athol Fugard, who's a South African writer. He pulled together the kind of politicalization that I had gone through in the late 60s, and what I thought that acting or art was supposed to be about. You know, he's an incredible use of the English language. He's one of the great writers in the English language. Incredible use, symbolism, and beautiful metaphors in his work. And I got a chance to play with that as an actor. And we all know that what happens as an actor happens between 2 people. And usually in Athol's plays, that was all that was on the stage for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 4 hours sometimes, as in Blood Knot, 2 people. And the magic that happens there happens in this play. It happens so beautifully. And I had the chance to experience that through 5 plays.
I want to ask you now, how do you get your first break, your first major role?
First major role, Robert Benton, who was probably one of the most, and I rank him with my father and my grandfather, probably one of the most beautiful men that I've ever met, called me in to do, and said that he wanted to see me. He had seen Master Harold and the Boys, both at Yale Rep and the opening on Broadway, and said that he wanted to see me for the role of Moses in Places in the Heart. He said, well, you might be a little bit too young, because I was thinking at the time when I met him, I was about maybe 35 years old. So you might be a little too young, because I wanted to be about 45 years old, but I'm going to meet you anyway. I auditioned. I remember calling my mother after reading the play. I said, Mom, after reading the film, I said, Mama, this is it. This is a film. This is a role. I don't know about roles. I never read a film script like that, and it moved me in a way. I mean, I recall as a kid growing up, going down to my grandparents' farm, sitting with them, being a part of them, picking cotton in the field, or eating, just something about that, going to church. All those are embodied in this man in some sort of way. He reminds me a little bit of my grandfather, on a side of my grandfather in a way, and I was drawn to that. I said in the film, it is kind of, in a way, chronicles, I think, my march, my lineum, my kind of my linear, or my connection with my family.
Now, let me ask you something. We have a very short time left. Of all the movies that you have done, which one did you prefer?
Well, for various reasons, for Places in the Heart, it has to be the most special movie for me.
Did you receive a lot of hate mail for Color Purple?
Well, I did. I didn't receive any at all, you know. It's not going to. And there are a lot of people are angry about it, you know, and had different feelings about the film. But
how about Lethal Weapon?
The most successful film to this day is in Lethal Weapon. I mean, but I wouldn't have done Lethal Weapon without doing Color Purple or everything else I did before. I mean, one step prepares you for the next step. You learn that in life. The step you take now prepares you for the next step, you know. Sometimes you don't know it. Sometimes you can't see it. But it's the catalyst for further growth. It opens up the next door.
What would you say to the young people who are out there, who maybe are dyslexic, maybe are having problems at home, maybe are with gangs, might have aspiration, but they don't think that they can fulfill them? What would you encourage them to do?
I encourage you to dream, first of all. The next thing I encourage you to do is that, I mean, it's tough right now. I've gone through this period of being 15 to 16 years old, 17-year-old. At one point in your life, you're going to learn to like yourself. You're going to understand that I can make some contribution to this world. I can make a contribution to my community. If you take it beyond yourself, if you understand yourself as being part of a continuum, you're only part of this long stretch of humanity, of men and women who've grown and made contributions. You're part of it. You're an important part of it, because you're the leaders of tomorrow, you're the mothers of tomorrow, the fathers of tomorrow, you're the husbands and of tomorrow, and you take this to another step. Believe that you can do that. Believe that you're important and that you're having a contribution or something to give to this community, to this world.
Would you have anything to say to the parents of young people who either are in trouble now, or the parents don't have the patience to see them through, or they say, I want to do this profession, and the parents think it's an absolutely silly business?
Well, I think for parents also, our job, being a parent myself, is to nurture, to be available, to be able to talk, to recall that at one point that you were there as well, that you were at this decisive point in your life. And it's important for you to listen. The key to life, the key to understanding, the key for us to deal with all the dilemmas we have is to listen and to carry on some sort of dialogue. And you find and trust them, and allow yourself to trust their instinct, and they'll be all right.
What about the educators? We've found through...
You're getting me... I'm doing too much on everybody here.
It's not a witch hunt, actually. It's to have to everybody.
I mean, teachers are but they're only part of the fabric, you know. I mean, they have a responsibility within the context of the whole. I mean, you can just can't take a teacher out and say that you were supposed to perform miracles. Those miracles, as they are, and they're not really miracles, you know. They're communicative. They're part of the process. They become part of this process, and they have a role. I think that there must be. It's essential that we have a reaffirmation of emergence of a new kind of outlook for teachers and their importance. That they should be paid adequately, that they should be held of the highest esteem, that they have this responsibility of being part of this process of molding young minds, you know, and that they have an important role.
No, this is totally for me. This is brand new for you to do a science fiction.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, you know.
Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
I think we made a number of good choices, you know, and I work with a wonderful team of people, you know, which includes my agents, my lawyers, and our lawyer, and other, and we make decisions. We made some decisions, and we said this was important for us to do because of the steps we wanted to take in terms of controlling our destiny and controlling what we were capable of doing, and dreamed of doing, and also in creating a situation where people took us. We wanted to take this to another level. I mean, you dream one dream doesn't mean that it ends there. There's another dream that happens out of there. The thing about producing is something we want to do, and establishing ourselves as serious players in this situation. You know, I mean, I understand that quite frankly, specifically, that Lethal Weapon, that I'm doing this film because of the success of Lethal Weapon. It's no mystery to it, you know? So what we want to do is place ourselves in a position where we can kind of determine the road we want to take, you know? And doing this film and working with a very young, wonderful director and a very wonderful cast, which includes yourself, is part of that process, you know. And it's a good script. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy and immersed in a way, and I'm having fun, which is a requirement in life and in work as well. And so it's quite an interesting experience with me.
Will your name be above the title?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, can I ask you what your next project, what you would like to do?
Well,
would you like to direct?
That's something that may come down the line. I don't know. I watch directors, and I'm saying, I watch someone like Steven work, and I say, God, how come I didn't think about that? How come I can't see the whole picture? I really see what happens at a particular moment and recreate this moment or bring life to this moment. Sometimes I can't see the whole picture. But there's a couple of projects. We want to do something next that it's not so much action orientated, and we'll get back to films like Places in the Heart and films like Color Purple. But I
have to wrap up.
Okay.
I only have 30 seconds. So I would like to thank Danny for sharing with us. And you, young people up there, please keep watching us, because we keep watching out for you. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you
very much.
All right.